In this video, I want to talk with all of my new home buyers out there. I want to talk about red flags to look for when you're doing your final walkthrough. For those who don't know, typically right before you close, maybe the day before, usually the day of, you will do, with your realtor, you'll do a final walkthrough. And the purpose of the final walkthrough is basically to make sure that the home is in as-is condition, and actually it's really in the condition that you saw the home when you put the offer in on it. So you want to make sure that the items that were intended to be left at the property are there, and that there's no new surprises. So if when you put your offer in, you knew the oven wasn't working, and part of your contract agreement or your repair request was that the oven would be fixed, and then you do a walkthrough and the oven's not fixed, that's an issue. The reason that walkthrough is so important is that's really your last chance before the home is your responsibility to take care of any issues that there are. Because of course you can choose not to close if the home isn't in adequate condition. So what are some of the most common things that come up in a final walkthrough? Basically, the first thing is the home isn't empty. So the sellers didn't remove everything out of the home. I once had a seller, this was actually when I was pretty new, and first year of real estate actually, and we got a contract on the home that I listed for them, and they had to move out a little quicker than they anticipated. They left the state, and the weekend before we were closing on Monday, I get a call from the buyer's agent. It was an investor that was buying the home, that the home wasn't empty. And I had checked with my clients and said, you got everything out of the home, you ready for closing before they left town? And they said yes. And basically the buyer's agent said, listen, the buyer's not going to close in the home the condition that it's in. Everything needs to be out. So I go by the home thinking that maybe there'll just be a couple items. It turns out that there was a whole bunch of stuff. I had a minivan at the time. We had to fill the van up, I think 3 or 4 times with stuff and bring it back to my house to get it cleaned out because the clients weren't there to do it. I actually remember we got a thunderstorm as we were packing up the last carload, and so we had the garage door partially open so we could quickly get stuff out. And my wife forgot that the door was partially open. And not all the way open, and she ran full speed into the garage door, gave herself a concussion. So I'll never forget that, all the work we did. It took us several weeks to get rid of all that stuff eventually from my sellers. And then I had another seller, this was several years later. I was working with a partner, and they had a moving truck come, moved all the furniture and all out, but they didn't have them take everything. And so there we were on closing day. I'm helping them move stuff and load it up into their trailer and their car because they hadn't packed everything. I still don't actually understand what happened there because they were having movers, they hired movers. We made sure that everything was set to go, and for some reason they just underestimated. I guess they were going to have to move stuff themselves, and the movers only moved the furniture. And in the end, it made for craziness. So one thing you're looking for is making sure the home is empty, that the seller didn't leave all their stuff that you don't want and they didn't want. The house could be a mess. So in the process of moving, dirt gets everywhere and all of that. You're supposed to leave the home broom swept. It doesn't have to be spotless, but it's supposed to be broom swept, unless of course you've specified something different in the contract. I've had one seller that actually agreed up front, actually, when she listed, that she was going to have the home professionally cleaned when she moved out. So you want to make sure that the home isn't a mess. You want to make sure that all the negotiated repairs have been completed, although I usually try to do that earlier than final walkthrough. I want receipts, I want pictures of the work, because I don't want that something that we're finding out the day of closing. If there was an agreement to leave certain pieces of furniture or whatnot, you want to make sure that's there, because once you close, if that stuff isn't there, good luck trying to get it back from the sellers. They've probably taken it with them wherever they moved to, and they're probably not giving it to you. Oftentimes, in the hectic nature of moving, sellers forget lawn maintenance, and so they let the lawn get extra long, weeds, whatnot, and it's not cared for, so you want to check for that. Sometimes appliances aren't working. They were working when you did your first walkthrough, when you looked at the home. They were working when the home inspector went through, but for whatever reason at final walkthrough they're not working. That's when you want to address that. That's why when I'm doing a walkthrough for my buyer, I always turn all the heating elements on the stove. I turn on the oven, I run the microwave, run the dishwasher, washer, dryer, check the fridge, check the AC, flush the toilets, run all the water in all the bathrooms in the kitchen, make sure I've got hot water. All of those are all things that I do during a final walkthrough. Sometimes when people move, they're pretty careless about banging into walls, or maybe the builders or the movers are, and there's damage done to the walls, so you want to look for that. All of a sudden maybe the AC goes out, so again, that's something you want to check for. Or there was other damage done during the move-in process. Those are the most common things that you see during a final walkthrough, and so those are all things you want to watch out for. Hopefully your agent will help guide you on the final walkthrough and things to look for, but nobody's perfect, and there can also sometimes be a mismatch of expectations, so that's a good time to fix those issues. Remember, as a buyer, once you close, whatever shape that home is in, it is now your responsibility, and you're probably not going to get the seller to do anything absent a lawsuit. And because you've signed for the home in that condition, when you close, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to win that lawsuit anyway. Of course, you can always consult an attorney and try, but just being realistic with you. Anyway, I hope this information on final walkthrough is helpful to you. As always, if you're looking to buy or sell in Central Florida, I love to help. Please reach out to me. Have a great day, everybody.